Imagine a life where you are no longer anxious to prove your worth, no longer pleading for attention, no longer caught in the exhausting web of explaining yourself to others. Imagine a life where your inner strength speaks louder than words, where your calm presence commands respect, and where your silence carries more weight than any argument. Too often, we are taught that to be noticed, to be valued, or to be loved, we must chase, beg, or explain ourselves endlessly. But true power, the kind that transforms lives and relationships, emerges when we step back, observe, and let the world witness our quiet strength. Today, we will explore how your silence can become your superpower, and why stepping into this sacred space of self-possession changes everything. Chasing is one of the most exhausting traps we willingly fall into, yet it often disguises itself as ambition, love, or care. It begins quietly, almost imperceptibly, with the desire to be noticed, the hope that someone will finally see you, or the longing to secure a place where you feel valued. At first, it seems harmless. You might extend a little extra effort, offer help beyond what is expected, or compromise your own comfort to gain approval. But what starts as a simple gesture gradually transforms into a pattern, one that silently erodes your self-respect and drains your energy. Chasing is not a sign of determination. It is a surrender of your personal power to forces beyond your control. When you chase, you place your worth in the hands of someone else. You give them the implicit message that your happiness, your attention, or your presence depends on their acknowledgement. This dynamic is not only unhealthy, but also deeply unsustainable. A person who is constantly seeking approval or attention is like a flame flickering in the wind. They are at the mercy of every external gust, and their light can never fully shine because it is tethered to something outside themselves. The irony is that the more you chase, the less value you appear to have. Desperation is always more visible than intention. People are naturally drawn to those who are confident in their presence, not those who plead for inclusion. Consider the story of Anna, a young professional in her late 20s who spent years trying to earn the respect and recognition of her peers. She stayed late at work every night, volunteered for every task, and constantly sought feedback to ensure she was meeting expectations. On the surface, she appeared dedicated, but beneath that dedication was a subtle desperation. She was chasing validation, trying to fill a void that could never be filled by external approval. Her colleagues, unconsciously sensing this neediness, often overlooked her contributions, assuming she would always be there to pick up the pieces. It was not until she decided to stop chasing, to focus instead on her own growth and her own excellence, that the shift occurred. She no longer extended herself unnecessarily. She no longer sought affirmation from others. She focused solely on becoming the best version of herself. And almost immediately the world took notice. Offers, opportunities, and genuine respect flowed toward her. Not because she pursued them, but because she had made herself undeniably valuable in her own eyes. Chasing is fundamentally a choice. It is the decision to place your energy into someone or something that does not reciprocate it naturally. It is the refusal to accept that not every pursuit is meant for you, that not every connection will honor your presence, and that not every desire should dominate your life. By stepping back, you are not abandoning your goals or relationships. You are prioritizing your own equilibrium. You are saying, silently but powerfully, I am enough without your approval. I am whole without your validation. I am present and valuable whether or not you chase me in return. Life has a strange way of rewarding patience. When you stop chasing, you create a space where authenticity can flourish. People are drawn to confidence because it signals self-possession. Think of it like a magnet. The more you chase, the more you push, and the less you attract. The more you step back, the more you allow the natural flow of energy to bring the right people and opportunities into your life. You begin to understand that attraction and respect cannot be forced. They emerge when you are fully aligned with your own purpose and presence. Chasing also distorts your perception of relationships, ambitions, and self-worth. When you chase, every rejection feels personal, every delay becomes a failure, and every unmet expectation becomes a reflection of inadequacy. But when you step back, you regain perspective. You see that people's responses are not always about you. They are about their own limitations, fears, and circumstances. By valuing yourself enough to let go, you free yourself from the emotional roller coaster that chasing creates. You reclaim the energy that was once spent trying to control outcomes and redirect it toward growth, passion, and meaningful connection. True power lies not in pursuit, but in presence. To stop chasing is to reclaim sovereignty over your mind, body, and heart. It is to embrace the idea that your value does not depend on another's recognition, that your existence is inherently meaningful, and that your inner light is enough to attract what is right for you. When you finally internalize this principle, you step into a space of quiet strength where everything else, opportunities, relationships, success, aligns naturally. You become magnetic, not because you are relentless, but because you are unshakable. The act of stepping back is not passivity, it is a declaration of self-respect. It is an understanding that your energy is finite and precious, and that it must be directed with intention. When you stop chasing, you honor yourself. You honor your time, your heart, and your soul, and in that honor you discover the profound truth. The world responds not to those who plead, but to those who carry themselves with unyielding dignity, patience, and the quiet confidence that they are in every sense enough. Begging is one of the quietest thieves of the human spirit. It begins subtly, often disguised as persistence or loyalty, as a desire to maintain connection, love, or approval. At first, it seems harmless. You might overextend yourself to someone you care about, bending to their needs while setting aside your own. You might apologize excessively, justify your actions, or diminish your own desires to keep the peace. And yet, with each concession, each plea, each attempt to earn favor, a subtle erosion of dignity occurs. Begging is not only a surrender of personal power, it is a silent statement that your worth is conditional, that you must prove yourself to exist in the eyes of others. Consider the story of David, a man who poured his life into a friendship that never returned the same energy. He always initiated contact, planned gatherings, and went out of his way to support his friend's ambitions. But his efforts were never reciprocated. Invitations were rarely returned, compliments were scant, and his presence was often taken for granted. For years he justified his behavior, telling himself that loyalty and generosity would eventually be rewarded. The truth, however, was unavoidable. By constantly giving and pleading for acknowledgement, he had positioned himself as dispensable. His dignity had been compromised by the very energy he hoped would strengthen the bond. It was only when he stopped begging, when he ceased to lower himself to earn approval, that he realized his value had never depended on another's recognition. Once he withdrew, the dynamic shifted. His friend began to seek his company. Respect followed naturally. And David finally understood that dignity cannot be earned, it must be preserved. Begging diminishes because it signals scarcity and neediness, emotions that human beings are instinctively wary of. When you beg for someone's time, affection, or attention, you imply that their presence or approval is more important than your own. This imbalance is felt by others even if unspoken. Psychologists have long noted that relationships founded on unequal emotional exchanges, where one person constantly gives and the other constantly receives, rarely endure with mutual respect. Over time, the giver experiences resentment, and the recipient unconsciously assumes dominance. Begging creates an invisible hierarchy, where your value is measured by your willingness to plead. Life teaches us repeatedly that dignity is non-negotiable. When you honor your own worth, you create boundaries that others are compelled to respect. Boundaries are not barriers to connection. They are frameworks for authentic interaction. Imagine a partner who constantly seeks reassurance. At first, it may feel like love, but over time, it communicates dependence rather than confidence. A partner who stops seeking constant validation suddenly becomes magnetic, not because they changed their feelings, but because they demonstrated that their presence is self-contained and whole. Begging communicates the opposite. I am incomplete without you. While vulnerability is human, vulnerability without self-respect becomes self-erasure. To stop begging is not to withhold care or affection. It is to honor the balance between giving and receiving. It is the recognition that your energy, your attention, and your love are sacred, finite resources that deserve reciprocity. By refusing to compromise your dignity, you create space for relationships built on equality, respect, and genuine connection. This principle applies beyond personal relationships. It applies to professional contexts, friendships, and even interactions with strangers. People naturally gravitate toward those who respect themselves, because self-respect signals strength, clarity, and emotional stability. Begging is often rooted in fear, the fear of rejection, abandonment, or failure. Yet the paradox is clear. When you beg less and value yourself more, the world responds with greater recognition and alignment. Opportunities appear without coercion, relationships deepen without manipulation, and respect becomes automatic. Real-world research supports this. Individuals who maintain strong personal boundaries and assert their self-worth report higher levels of life satisfaction, stronger social connections, and improved mental health outcomes. The simple act of valuing oneself has profound ripple effects, transforming not only how others perceive you, but also how you perceive yourself. There is also a quiet, almost invisible power in refusal. To say no, to step back, to stop pleading for acceptance is to reclaim your autonomy. Every time you allow someone to disregard your needs or diminish your presence, you erode your confidence incrementally. Conversely, every time you assert that your dignity is non-negotiable, you reinforce the unshakable truth of your own worth. You teach the world how to treat you, not through argument or confrontation, but through presence, consistency, and self-respect. Ultimately, begging is the antithesis of empowerment. It asks for recognition, approval, and value from outside sources, rather than claiming them internally. To live with dignity is to trust that your existence, your choices, and your presence are inherently valuable. When you stop begging, you no longer live in the shadow of someone else's perception. You live in the light of your own authority, a place where respect is inevitable because it is earned not through pleading, but through the undeniable integrity of self-worth. Explaining ourselves has become almost instinctive in modern life. From childhood, we are trained to justify our actions, defend our choices, and ensure that others understand the reasoning behind every decision we make. We apologize for what we are, clarify what we think, and constantly rationalize why we feel the way we feel. And yet, beneath this compulsion to explain lies a hidden truth. The more we seek to justify ourselves, the more we dilute our power, the more we tie our sense of worth to the perception of others, and the less we inhabit the full clarity of our own self-knowledge. When we explain, we are often trying to prevent discomfort, avoid conflict, or gain acceptance. But explanations, no matter how thorough, rarely change how others perceive us. In fact, they can sometimes reveal uncertainty where none need exist. Consider a colleague who constantly explains their decisions in meetings, providing excessive context and defending choices that are already effective, rather than appearing competent. This individual risks appearing insecure or unsure, as though their work is insufficient without external validation. The audience, consciously or unconsciously, senses this need to justify and interprets it as a lack of internal certainty. There is profound freedom in choosing not to explain. When you stop offering constant justifications, you reclaim the authority over your own narrative. You acknowledge that your life, your choices, and your emotions do not require permission from anyone. This does not mean indifference or arrogance. It means a deep, unshakable understanding of self. When you are fully aligned with your values and actions, explanation becomes unnecessary because clarity is already inherent in your presence. People sense this alignment intuitively. Your confidence communicates volumes without the need for words. Take the example of a quiet leader, someone whose decisions are thoughtful and deliberate. This leader does not feel compelled to justify every choice to their team. Instead, they act from a grounded understanding of what is necessary, ethical, and effective. The team observes, notes the outcomes, and gradually develops trust in the leader's judgment. Here, silence and non-justification are far more powerful than any explanation could be. The leader's authority emerges naturally from competence, self-possession, and consistency, not from the repetitive assertion of reasoning. Explaining often comes from fear, the fear of being misunderstood, rejected, or judged, yet paradoxically, over-explaining frequently leads to more confusion rather than clarity. People have their own biases, emotions, and limitations that determine how they interpret your words. No amount of reasoning can fully control their perception. By surrendering the need to constantly justify yourself, you release the energy spent attempting the impossible task of controlling others' understanding. Instead, you redirect that energy toward cultivating self-awareness, self-trust, and inner alignment. In relationships, this principle is equally transformative. Imagine a scenario where someone constantly defends their feelings, choices, or boundaries to a partner. While initially intended to foster understanding, the effect often becomes the opposite. The partner may come to expect continuous rationalization, subtly undermining the individual's autonomy by refusing to explain. While maintaining respect and clear boundaries, a person communicates strength, clarity, and confidence. Their emotions and decisions are their own. They are not negotiable, and they do not require external validation. This stance fosters respect and mutual understanding because it is rooted in self-knowledge, not fear. From a psychological perspective, the act of explanation is often linked to the ego's desire for approval. The ego seeks external reinforcement to confirm its choices, attempting to validate itself through others' acceptance. But true clarity comes not from external approval, but from intimate familiarity with one's own principles, priorities, and values. When you act from self-knowledge, the need for explanation dissipates, because your internal compass already guides every step. You are anchored in certainty, and this certainty communicates itself through presence, action, and intention. Historical figures and thinkers have long demonstrated the power of measured silence. Great philosophers, artists, and leaders often allowed their work, their decisions, and their actions to speak for themselves. Their lives conveyed meaning without the constant need to justify every thought or choice. This demonstrates a critical truth. Explanation is secondary to authenticity and alignment. When you live authentically, those who matter will understand, and those who do not will never truly need to. Ultimately, refusing to explain is an act of liberation. It is the recognition that your life is your own, your choices are grounded in your wisdom, and your sense of self does not depend on the comprehension or approval of others. By embracing this principle, you reclaim the power of clarity, cultivate self-respect, and allow your presence to speak with authority. Your silence becomes not a retreat but a statement, one that communicates conviction, self-possession, and the profound strength that comes from knowing yourself completely. Silence is one of the most underestimated forms of power in human interaction. From childhood, we are conditioned to fill gaps with words, to defend ourselves, to explain, justify, or react to every slight or question. The world rewards verbosity, boldness, and the ability to argue one's way into respect. Yet, the truth is that silence, when wielded intentionally, communicates far more than speech ever could. It is a strategic tool, a language of presence, and a reflection of inner authority that cannot be fabricated. When used strategically, silence transforms absence into a statement. There is a profound difference between quietude born of fear or uncertainty and quietude born of control and confidence. The first signals insecurity, while the second signals mastery. Consider the way a master chess player thinks. Each pause, each hesitation is measured and purposeful, designed to convey depth, to unsettle the opponent, and to allow the right move to reveal itself. In life, relationships, and even in professional arenas, the same principle applies. The person who reacts immediately to every stimulus, who fills every silence with words, often loses the subtle advantage that comes with presence and timing. Absence is a language that is universally understood. When you stop over-communicating, when you step back from constant interaction, your absence gains weight. People begin to notice what is missing, to recognize your value, and to reflect on what your presence brings. Imagine a colleague who has always been available, responding immediately to requests and eager to participate in every discussion. One day, they step back, not out of neglect, but out of choice. Suddenly, their contributions are seen differently. Their presence is missed, and their influence grows. Silence is not emptiness, it is space for reflection, for desire, and for respect to arise naturally. Strategically, silence is also a tool for emotional calibration. When confronted with provocation, criticism, or conflict, the immediate reaction is often defensive, an instinct to explain, justify, or retaliate. But responding impulsively gives away power. Silence, by contrast, allows observation and deliberation. It signals that you are unshaken, that your inner state is independent of the external turbulence. Consider historical leaders and thinkers known for their calm composure. Their measured pauses in moments of tension often communicated more authority than any words could. Silence communicates that you are in control, that your energy cannot be manipulated, and that your presence is unassailable. In personal relationships, silence has a magnetic effect. It cultivates respect, draws attention, and encourages reflection. When someone attempts to provoke or manipulate, responding with measured silence communicates more than any argument. It says, "I am not swayed by your attempts to control me. I am grounded, I am aware, I am whole." Silence becomes a mirror, reflecting the intentions and behaviors of others back to them. It is not passive, it is active, deliberate, and profoundly influential. People often reveal themselves when faced with your absence, because silence forces them to confront the space you occupy emotionally, socially, or professionally. Silence also serves as a signal of self-possession. In a world obsessed with constant affirmation, likes, replies, and engagement, the ability to step back and remain present without reacting conveys strength. Social psychology shows that people who maintain composure in emotionally charged situations are often perceived as more competent, trustworthy, and attractive. This is not coincidence. Presence, reinforced by silence, communicates self-respect and emotional intelligence, qualities that words alone cannot adequately convey. Moreover, silence allows the mind to process, reflect, and observe. When you withhold immediate reaction, you gain clarity about the situation, the motives of others, and your own intentions. Decisions made from this place of measured observation are more precise, impactful, and aligned with your values. Silence becomes a shield against impulsivity and a beacon of strategic wisdom. Those who can master this skill understand that what is unsaid often carries more power than what is spoken. In relationships, business, and personal growth, silence communicates priorities. It conveys that your energy is not to be wasted, that your attention is deliberate, and that your presence is not trivial. It invites curiosity, respect, and even admiration. Absence, in this context, is not withdrawal, it is intentional influence. It creates a space where people recognize what truly matters and reflect on the impact of your presence. In a paradoxical way, the less you speak, the more your essence resonates. Ultimately, mastering silence transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. It allows absence to speak, presence to radiate, and authority to manifest naturally. It is a superpower that cannot be seen superficially, but one that is felt deeply by everyone who encounters it. When wielded with intention, silence communicates more than explanations ever could. It signals clarity, self-possession, and the unshakable truth that you are in command of your own life, regardless of the noise, judgment, or chaos around you. Transformation begins when the outer noise fades and the inner voice becomes unmistakably clear. Inner alignment is the state in which your thoughts, emotions, and actions harmonize with your true self, your values, principles, and deepest desires. It is the place where you no longer live to appease others, explain yourself, or chase validation. It is a place of profound self-possession, where your energy, presence, and decisions resonate with authenticity. Those who cultivate inner alignment discover a superpower that transcends circumstance, a life in which clarity, peace, and influence emerge naturally. When you are misaligned, life often feels chaotic, reactive, and exhausting. Decisions feel heavy because they are based on external expectations rather than internal truth. Relationships feel draining because you are trying to fit into roles that are not yours. Success feels hollow because it is measured by standards that are not your own. This misalignment creates tension, anxiety, and a persistent sense of insufficiency. You chase what seems desirable, argue for your value, and over-explain yourself, yet nothing feels truly satisfying. True transformation begins when you stop bending to the world's definition of worth and begin to listen deeply to your own. Consider the example of Maya, a mid-level executive who had spent years striving for recognition in a corporate environment. She followed every protocol, agreed with every suggestion, and constantly sought feedback to ensure she was on track. Despite her hard work, she felt unfulfilled and invisible. It was only when she decided to step back and evaluate her true priorities, her creativity, her passion for helping others, and her desire for meaningful work, that her life began to shift. She realigned her career path with her authentic self, choosing projects that resonated with her values rather than those dictated by approval-seeking. The result was remarkable. Her performance improved naturally, colleagues sought her input, and opportunities arrived effortlessly. Alignment created not only peace, but also influence. The kind of influence that does not demand attention, but earns it. Inner alignment is not about rigid control or perfection. It is about honesty with yourself about what you want, what you need, and who you are. This requires courage, because alignment often means saying no to what does not serve you, withdrawing from toxic environments, and refusing to compromise your principles for the comfort or approval of others. But it is precisely through these acts of self-honesty that your life begins to operate on higher frequency. Your energy is no longer scattered, it is concentrated, intentional, and magnetic. There is also a practical dimension to alignment. When your inner world is in harmony, your external world naturally mirrors that coherence. Studies in psychology show that people who act consistently with their core values experience higher levels of satisfaction, reduced stress, and improved relational dynamics. Others perceive them as authentic and trustworthy, and as a result, opportunities, respect, and connection come with ease. Alignment transforms you into a living signal of integrity, a person whose presence carries weight because it emanates from an unshakable center. One of the most compelling aspects of inner alignment is that it allows silence, patience, and observation to become superpowers. When your actions are guided by internal clarity rather than external pressure, you no longer need to chase, beg, or explain. You act with intentionality, you wait with discernment, you speak with purpose. In this state, life stops being a series of reactive responses and becomes a deliberate expression of who you truly are. The energy you emit is coherent and magnetic. It draws people, opportunities, and experiences that resonate with your truth. Alignment also teaches resilience. Life will always present challenges, rejection, and unexpected change. Those who are unaligned are tossed about by every setback, constantly questioning themselves and their worth. Those who are aligned, by contrast, respond with equanimity. Their internal compass provides direction even in turbulence, guiding them to decisions that preserve integrity and maintain momentum. This resilience is part of the superpower, the ability to navigate complexity without losing sight of yourself. Ultimately, inner alignment is a transformative force because it redefines power itself. True power is not control over others, external recognition, or material accumulation. True power emerges from coherence, self-respect, and authenticity. It is reflected in calm presence, decisive action, and unshakable confidence. When your life is aligned, you become a force of influence that cannot be denied, not because you demand attention, but because you embody it fully. By cultivating alignment, you step into a life where every choice, interaction, and pursuit reflects your deepest truth. Your presence commands respect, your decisions generate impact, and your energy attracts the right people, opportunities, and experiences. You are no longer subject to the whims of others' opinions or the chaos of misaligned desire. Instead, you operate from a place of clarity, conviction, and self-possession. the ultimate superpower that transforms ordinary existence into extraordinary life. As we come to the close of this reflection, remember this: your power does not lie in chasing, begging, or explaining yourself. Your true strength is found in the quiet, unwavering presence of your own self-worth. When you step back, honor your dignity, trust your clarity, and wield silence with intention, you tap into a force far greater than any external approval or recognition. Life responds not to desperation, but to confidence. It is drawn to authenticity, respect, and alignment. Your silence becomes your voice, your presence becomes your influence, and your inner alignment becomes your superpower. So embrace the stillness, stand tall in your value. Speak through your actions, not your explanations. Let the world witness the unshakable truth of who you are. In that space, you are untouchable. In that space, you are magnetic. In that space, you are free. Your power has always been within you, quiet, steady, and infinite. Step into it and watch how everything else aligns.